Today we're making a built-in entry closet with sliding mirror doors for the tiny apartment. Boom! Now that I've built the kitchen, the Murphy bed, and the sofa system, it's time for another big piece of furniture. This entry closet is very necessary for a small apartment like this, which is 31 square meters. So a place to put some house cleaning stuff, coats, sneakers, backpacks, and cases couldn't really find a way anywhere else besides here. The entire project is built with laminar eucalyptus plywood as it is quite hard and resistant. I will be making sliding doors on the cheap, so I simply cut 2 grooves on the bottom face for the rollers to slide. I quickly realized that I would need to get rid of part of the baseboard and I got into cutting it, but eventually the entire piece came off. It's okay, I will fix that in the end. As you can see, I placed masking tape on the floor just to mark the area that the closet will take, and I can now remove it and start the assembly. This is the same wall as where the wall bed and sofa are leaning against, so yep, another trapezoidal shaped piece of furniture. Anyway, after cutting the pieces to size, I drilled some holes for the screws and attached 2 blocks that will help me position the horizontal pieces right where they belong. Working all alone makes things a bit tricky, so this was my way of solving the issue. I connected everything with lube finished wood screws that I got from Rockler. This plywood is quite hard, so having lubricated screws really make the job easier. I kept cutting the sheets to match the wanted size. So each door will be around 60 centimeters, being one slightly smaller than the other so that the one that runs in front always covers the end of the other door. Not sure how commercially available sliding doors are made, but this just seemed to make visual sense to me. I had to use pocket holes for some joints because there was really no other way to fully secure the components on site. So here you see me using the helper blocks, and I can rest the horizontal piece on top and screw it. This will be permanently attached to the wall, so I grabbed some angle brackets that I already had and used them. They are plenty strong for this purpose, although I don't really like the look, but well, I really was on a tight budget for this one, and it's not the end of the world. At this point, I noticed that something was not quite right, and after investigating, I realized that the floor was out of level and out of square in relation to the walls, so it was making the whole build crooked. I tried these blue concrete anchors for the first time that don't require plastic bushings, and they worked pretty nicely. So yes, these are concrete and brick walls, not drywalls. I'll have the link for the screws in the description. Here is another trapezoidal shelf that I will be installing using the helper block. Let me take a moment to tell you about Laminar, the Portuguese producer of the eucalyptus plywood. Besides Asia, it is extremely rare to find a factory producing this type of plywood, which makes them rather special. I found it to be quite strong and hard, as it can be a great solution for structural works as well as pieces of furniture of a bigger scale. As the faces are great looking due to the straight grain, it can be used for shelves, tabletops, and other woodworking or carpentry projects. On their factory, everything is still traditionally manufactured, and I decided to film the process to show you, so I hope you enjoy this segment. They produce all kinds of plywood meeting the customer's needs using other species of wood as well as veneers. You can find the link to their website in the description. So now let's get back to the project. As this will be all painted white, I didn't care too much about screw placement, as none of them will be visible in the end. Before installing this last vertical divider, I wanted to drill evenly spaced holes for small shelves that can be adjusted depending on the content to be stored. I made all the holes using this shelving jig from Rockler and the centering bit that came with it. It was really easy to get them in perfect place and aligned to each other. I didn't drill every single hole in the template. I skipped every 2 holes because I didn't feel like it was necessary to have as much adjustability. And after drilling the vertical divider, I removed the black stopper and I went back to the closet to drill the final row close to the wall. I placed a few scraps under the bottom face to raise it enough to be leveled, and now I'm trying to disguise that messy look with a super long wedge. I used putty to correct any imperfections on the plywood edges and covered the screw heads prior to painting. I also caulked all the dividers and shelves to give it a nicer look and help close some nasty gaps due to the walls not being straight or completely flat. While it is drying, I can get started on the sliding doors. So after cutting them to size, I brought them out to round pockets for the rollers to get slightly embedded. You certainly don't need to do this, but I'm not sure why I decided to make the bottom grooves so close to each other. So then I had to embed the rollers a bit in order for the doors to work properly and fit within the designated space. So I quickly traced the shape and elongated the top area to make it easier for the screwdriver to fit and adjust the screws later on. This doesn't need to look too pretty as it will never be seen. I didn't predict that they would bump here, so I cut away a little bit of material to make room for the rollers to pass. Okay, much better. I can now prep for finish, and for that I will be applying 1 coat of white wood primer and 2 coats of the acrylic wall paint, that is cloud white. I painted both sides of the doors to prevent the wood from bowing, which is very probable to happen when you only finish one side of any sheet good. To hold the doors in place, I simply bought aluminum C-channel on my hardware store that had slightly more room than the thickness of the doors. I wanted to take this opportunity to have a full-length mirror in the apartment, so covering the doors with mirrored glass was the way to go. I ordered 2 pieces from a local glass shop with a small indentation to work as a handle. I enhanced the little pockets with a router and a straight bit, and it was finally time to stick the mirror to the door panels. The adhesive I used was given to me at the glass shop and is specifically meant to glue mirrors. Be careful, as you cannot use just any silicone or construction adhesive because it will mess up the mirror backing. To press it firmly, I used the most ancient clamps of all time. A few months later, I had the time to finalize the project and build drawers for the bottom left divider. So I cut a bunch of pieces on the table saw, and the material that I used was pre-finished birch plywood for the sides and bottoms and laminar eucalyptus plywood for the fronts. The sides are 12mm thick and the bottoms are 6mm. You can see the little extension table that I added recently to my table saw, and I'm super happy with it. I wanted the fronts to cover the sides because I won't be applying false fronts, so my idea was to create a deep rabbet, removing almost the entire thickness. So I was ready to cut it on the table saw, but then I noticed that I don't have a zero clearance insert, which means that the piece of wood would fall into the table if I tried to do this, making the cut very insecure. So I changed plans and went ahead testing my brand new dado blade set. I set the blades for a 1/4 inch cut and first cut all the grooves on all pieces to receive the bottom boards. Well, I know what you're thinking. Yes, I am in Europe, and yes, I have a dado blade set that I found with the 20mm arbor hole, and yes, my table saw has a long arbor to receive thicker blade configurations, and yes, this table saw meets all regulations regarding motor power, stop speed, and brake for dado blade usage. Sometimes I get comments about why do I have a hole in the middle of my workbench and what is this darker wood piece in the middle. So here's one of the usages for it. It's very useful for rapidly clamp boards using the bench dogs on the vise. Okay, so now that all sides are ready, I can measure and cut the bottoms out of 6mm plywood. Now, because I will be installing concealed hinges that I got from Rockler as well, I need to cut a couple of notches on the back pieces. Crafted Workshop has a great video explaining how to install this type of drawer slides, and I basically followed Johnny's indications to install mine. I didn't apply any glue because I don't think it is necessary, as I was going to use wood screws anyway, and also being a pre-finished wood, at some of the joints it wouldn't really work unless the area of contact gets fully scratched to accept the glue. Now, to mount the drawer slides besides the notch, a 6mm hole needs to be drilled at a specific place. The manufacturer has template jigs as well as Rockler, but I didn't have any of those in hand, so I simply made myself a template out of a business card. Then I drilled the hole 10mm deep. Be careful not to drill all the way through, as you will get a poked drawer. These holes here need to be drilled at a slight angle. Back to the closet, I added a strip of wood to meet the alignment of the doors fully opened, as the drawers obviously cannot open if there is a door partially blocking the movement. And I also added 3 strips with the same thickness so I can attach the slides. On the left side, they mount directly to the cabinet side, but on the right side, the sliders are mounted to the wood spacers. I can now simply click the drawers into place and they are fully installed. Okay, so all that is left is to finish the fronts. I applied some wood putty to fill some gaps on the plywood edges and gave the fronts a couple of coats of water-based varnish. I didn't like the look of these edges, so I randomly decided to paint them yellow, which was not a great idea because I eventually realized that was a wrong decision and switched to white so they match the rest of the closet. And here is the final closet, ready to store a bunch of stuff with 3 drawers that are super easy to remove and a wardrobe hanger bar. The adjustable shelf system with the pins works really well, and I think it makes for a great use of the space. Here's the baseboard piece fixed and adapted to the sliding doors. I also added a few LED light bars with a sensor so that it automatically turns on when it senses movement. I'll post a link in the description for these as well as many other tools that I used on this project. Big thanks to Rockler and Laminat for making this video possible, as well as to my Patreon members that continuously support my work. Thanks everyone for watching, and go get your hands dirty!